Imagine the Nile winding through golden desert sands where towering obelisks rise beneath the blazing sun and pyramids stand defiantly against the march of time. This is ancient Egypt, a civilization that gave birth to powerful pharaohs, awe-inspiring monuments, and a belief system that bridged the mortal world with the divine. From the legend of Osiris and Isis to the mysteries of mummification, Egypt is not just history, but a tale woven from power, art, and spirituality. Yet behind this grandeur lies a long journey of triumphs and defeats, victories and losses, and our voyage begins here. Beneath the deep blue skies of northeastern Africa, the Nile River winds like a ribbon of emerald through an endless sea of sand, bringing life to lands that would otherwise be barren. Along its banks, more than 5,000 years ago, a civilization began to take root, one that would become a symbol of grandeur and endurance. Ancient Egypt. The origins of Egypt did not emerge from the towering pyramids or the mighty pharaohs, but from small communities whose lives depended on the rhythmic flooding of the Nile. Each year, the river swelled, covering its banks with rich, fertile silt, allowing people to cultivate crops and produce agricultural surpluses. This stability nurtured the growth of villages into towns, and towns into small kingdoms scattered along the river's two distinct stretches, Upper Egypt to the south, where the Nile flowed through narrow gorges and cataracts, and Lower Egypt to the north, where the vast, lush delta spread toward the Mediterranean. Initially, Upper and Lower Egypt existed as two separate worlds, each with its own symbols, deities, and customs. Upper Egypt bore the white crown Hedjet, linked to the vulture goddess Nekhbet, protector of the southern lands. Lower Egypt carried the red crown Deshret, worshipping Wadjet, the cobra goddess. Both regions thrived on agriculture but competed fiercely for control of the Nile, the sole lifeline of the land. Around 3100 BCE, a legendary figure emerged, Narmer, also known as Menes, the king of Upper Egypt. Through military might and diplomatic skill, he conquered Lower Egypt, uniting both banks of the Nile into a single nation. The emblem of this unification was the double crown Shent, combining the white and red crowns to symbolize the pharaoh's supreme authority over both lands. The first capital of unified Egypt was established at Memphis, strategically located at the border between Upper and Lower Egypt, serving as the central hub for ruling the entire country. Memphis quickly became a bustling administrative, religious, and commercial center, with roads leading to both the desert and the Nile, crowded with merchants, artisans, and officials. This unification not only forged a powerful kingdom, but also laid the foundation for a political system centered on the pharaoh, regarded as the living embodiment of the god Horus, and as Osiris in death. In the Egyptian worldview, the pharaoh was not merely a king, but a divine mediator between mortals and the gods, ensuring the maintenance of Ma'at, the cosmic order and harmony of the universe. The early years of the First Dynasty saw rapid advancements in agriculture, trade, and architecture. Egyptians learned to construct buildings from mud brick and limestone, erecting small temples to honor local deities. They also developed their hieroglyphic writing system to record important events, economic transactions, and religious practices. Life along the Nile followed the rhythm of the seasons, flooding, planting, and harvesting. When the waters receded, lush green fields stretched endlessly, farmers plowing with oxen and sowing wheat and barley. Sailboats glided along the river, carrying timber from Lebanon, gold from Nubia, and incense from Punt. This wealth enabled the pharaoh to sustain a complex bureaucracy of officials, priests, and a massive labor force. Religion played a central role in Egyptian life. Each city worshipped one or more patron deities, and their mythology reflected a profound connection between humanity and nature. The sun god Ra was revered as the source of life. Osiris ruled the afterlife. Isis embodied love and magic, and Horus, the falcon god, protected the pharaoh. Under the early pharaohs, particularly during the Third Dynasty, Egyptian architecture entered a new era. The legendary architect Imhotep, serving Pharaoh Djoser, built the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, the first large-scale stone monument in human history. This pyramid was not merely a tomb, but a symbol of the pharaoh's power and his yearning for eternal life. Royal ceremonies grew increasingly elaborate. Festivals such as Heb-Sed, held to reaffirm the pharaoh's vigor and divine mandate, were celebrated on a grand scale, attracting thousands of participants. In temple courtyards, daily rituals of offerings and prayers echoed with the sounds of drums, flutes, and chants beneath towering stone columns. Egypt's international trade flourished. They exchanged gold, ivory, and precious stones from Nubia, cedar wood from Byblos, incense and aromatic resins from Punt, and other luxury goods. This network of commerce not only brought prosperity, but also introduced new cultural influences into Egypt, from crafting techniques to artistic styles. Yet beneath this grandeur lay challenges. The newly unified kingdom still needed time to solidify. Some remote regions remained loyal to their former chieftains, occasionally rebelling against central authority. The early pharaohs had to expand their territories, suppress uprisings, and ensure that Ma'at was preserved. The story of ancient Egypt's formative years is a tapestry woven from strength, faith, and human ingenuity. On golden sands beneath the blazing sun, they laid the first stones of an empire that would endure for over 3 millennia, leaving monuments and legends that would astonish the world forever. And from here, the journey toward the glorious age of the pyramids began. As Egypt entered the Old Kingdom, around 2686 BCE, the nation had become one of the most stable and prosperous civilizations in the ancient world. This was the era when the image of mighty pyramids, grand tombs, and colossal monuments began to etch itself into the imagination of humankind, a time when the pharaoh's authority reached unparalleled heights. At the heart of everything stood Memphis, the resplendent capital where stone-paved roads stretched like veins toward the empire's beating heart. Here, sun-bleached palaces gleamed. Stone columns inscribed with hieroglyphs towered over courtyards, and temples carved with intricate reliefs showcased Egypt's unmatched wealth and power. Wearing the double-crown Shent, the pharaoh sat on his throne as the living Horus, the divine bridge between the mortal realm and the gods. The people believed the pharaoh ruled not just by might, but through Ma'at, the sacred principle of cosmic order, justice, and balance. Maintaining Ma'at was the king's highest duty. Any disturbance, irregular Nile floods, famine, or war, could be seen as a sign that the pharaoh had failed in this divine responsibility. Within this context, the Fourth Dynasty of the Old Kingdom gave rise to the greatest monuments, the pyramids of Giza. Pharaoh Sneferu, celebrated as a master builder, experimented with various pyramid designs, from the bent pyramid to the red pyramid at Dashur. These experiments laid the engineering foundation for the most perfect of them all, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, Cheops. Khufu, Sneferu's son, ordered the construction of a monument that was not merely a tomb, but a declaration of absolute power. Tens of thousands of craftsmen, farmers, and laborers toiled for decades, moving massive limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, from distant quarries, aligning them with near-perfect precision. standing nearly 147 meters tall upon completion. The Great Pyramid of Giza remains the only surviving wonder of the ancient world. Alongside Khufu were his successors, Pharaoh Djedefre and Khafre. Khafre is famed for his own pyramid and for commissioning the mysterious Great Sphinx, the largest monolithic statue of the ancient world. The Sphinx's deep, unwavering gaze seems to pierce through time, provoking questions that remain unanswered about its true purpose and symbolism. Life in Old Kingdom Egypt was not solely about monumental construction. Society was strictly hierarchical. Pharaoh at the top, followed by officials, priests, scribes, artisans, and farmers. Farmers formed the backbone of the economy, feeding the entire nation. During the annual flood season, when farming was impossible, they were mobilized to work on state projects, a means for Pharaoh to harness Egypt's vast labor force. Religion permeated all aspects of life. Ra, the sun god, was revered as the supreme deity. Each day, Ra was believed to journey across the sky in his solar bark, battling the serpent Apep in the underworld at night to bring forth the dawn. This eternal cycle reflected the Egyptian view of life and death. Death was not the end, but a passage into another realm. Art in this era reached a level of standardization and refinement. Tomb reliefs and wall paintings vividly depicted daily life, hunting, fishing, harvesting, and banquets. Colors were made from natural minerals, copper, gold, and powdered gemstones. Human figures followed strict artistic conventions, heads and legs in profile, while torsos and eyes faced forward. Egypt's economy was based mainly on agriculture, but international trade flourished. Ships sailed the Mediterranean and the Red Sea to bring back wood, precious stones, and luxury goods. Relations with Nubia to the south were especially crucial as it provided gold, ivory, and mercenary soldiers. Yet this golden era would not last forever. By the end of the Old Kingdom, around 2181 BCE, Egypt fell into the First Intermediate Period, a time of political fragmentation and hardship. Multiple factors contributed: irregular Nile floods leading to famine, the growing power of local governors undermining the pharaoh, and the immense resources consumed by monumental building projects. The Old Kingdom left behind a dazzling legacy: pyramids defying time, statues carved to embody the pharaoh's might, and a religious, artistic, and political framework that would shape Egypt for millennia. No matter how dynasties rose or fell, how wars were fought or floods ravaged the land, the image of the Old Kingdom remained an immortal symbol of an age when humans believed they could touch eternity. The late afternoon sun cast its golden light over the massive sandstone walls of the Karnak Temple, reflecting crimson fire onto the surface of the Nile. A dry wind from the western desert carried the scent of sand and burning resin from temple altars. This was not merely the beauty of a passing day. It symbolized an era of transition in Egyptian history, the final stage of the Middle Kingdom, poised to give way to the drama and splendor of the New Kingdom. Yet, before this new glory could rise, the land endured a chain of events both magnificent and tragic. After the stability of the 12th dynasty, pharaonic power began to falter. Weaker successors took the throne, monumental buildings slowed, and the influence of provincial nobles grew stronger. Remote territories like Nubia, Sinai, and Canaan became increasingly difficult to control. Meanwhile, from the northeast, a foreign group, later known as the Hyksos, began to infiltrate the Nile Delta. Initially arriving as traders and migrants, they brought with them innovations such as the horse-drawn chariot and the composite bow. Over time, as central authority weakened, they seized their chance. Around 1650 BCE, the Hyksos took control of Avaris in the delta and established their own government, ruling much of northern Egypt. This marked the second intermediate period, during which the pharaoh's power was fractured, the north under Hyksos rule and the south still governed by native pharaohs in Thebes. For nearly a century, this uneasy coexistence persisted. Yet even in this divided age, Egyptian culture and religion flourished. In Thebes, the southern pharaohs continued expanding the Karnak temple to honor the god Amun. Religious festivals thrived, and myths like that of Osiris were still told along the Nile's banks. Beneath the surface, however, burned an unshakable desire to reunite the two lands. The struggle began under Seqenenre-Tao, a pharaoh whose mummy bears severe head wounds, evidence of his death in battle against the Hyksos. His son, Kamose, carried on the fight, launching campaigns northward to disrupt Hyksos supply lines. Though he did not live to see the war's end, Kamose laid the groundwork for his successor, Ahmose the Phapan, to finish the mission. Ahmose Aphan, founder of the 18th dynasty, became a symbol of revival. Using the Hyksos' own chariots and military technology, he besieged Avaris and expelled the invaders. He pursued them deep into Canaan to prevent any return. When the smoke cleared, a new Egypt emerged, stronger, more ambitious, and ready to enter the age of empire. Under Ahmose, Egypt reclaimed Nubia, exploiting its gold mines and precious stone quarries to fuel economic recovery. The military underwent a complete transformation, evolving from part-time militias into a professional standing army, chariotry, elite infantry, and master archers. This laid the foundation for the great campaigns of the future. The new dynasty also invested heavily in construction. In Thebes, temples expanded, and statues of the pharaoh wearing the double crown, symbolizing the unity of Upper and Lower Egypt, were erected across the land. Trade routes through the Red Sea connected Egypt to the legendary land of Punt, bringing incense, ivory, ebony, and gold into the royal treasury. Society itself was transformed. Contact with the Hyksos left lasting marks, from chariot technology to decorative styles, and even certain loanwords entering the Egyptian language. At the same time, national pride and devotion to native traditions deepened. Victory over the Hyksos was immortalized on temple walls and stelae as a constant reminder of a hard but glorious struggle. This period also marked the peak of the Amun priesthood's power in Thebes. With Amun merged with the sun god Ra as Amun-Ra, his cult became the state religion. Pharaohs cemented alliances by donating vast lands and treasures to Amun's temples, forging a political religious power block. As the sun set over the Nile, one could imagine warriors returning from Canaan, chariot wheels rumbling across the sand, their shouts echoing in the valleys. In the fading light, a young pharaoh mounted the temple steps at Karnak, raised his scepter, and proclaimed, "Egypt has returned, stronger than ever." This was the moment that opened the gates to the new kingdom, the most glorious chapter in ancient Egypt's history. The morning sun rose in the east, piercing through thin layers of mist over the Nile, casting its first golden rays upon the colossal stone columns of Luxor Temple. The calls of ibises and white egrets echoed over the floodplains, blending with the gentle splash of oars against the water. This was Egypt in the 15th century BCE, an empire at the height of its power, wealth, and authority, entering the era known as the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom began with the victory of Ahmose over the Hyksos, but its true golden age emerged under the reigns of kings like Thutmose III, Amenhotep III, and Ramses II. Egypt was no longer merely a nation along the Nile. It had become an empire stretching from Nubia in the south to Syria in the north. Pharaohs no longer merely defended borders. They conquered, imposed tribute, and shaped the political landscape of the entire Near East. Thutmose III, often called the Napoleon of ancient Egypt, led over 15 major military campaigns during his reign. One of the most famous was the Battle of Megiddo, 1457 BCE, where he employed a daring flanking maneuver to defeat the coalition of Canaanite city-states. Following this victory, vast territories from Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon became Egyptian vassals. Treasures, cedar wood, copper, silver, and even captives were brought back to Thebes, enriching the royal court and temples. But the new kingdom was not defined solely by military might. Under Amenhotep III, Egypt entered a golden age of art and architecture. He commissioned magnificent monuments such as Luxor Temple, the Colossi of Memnon, and hundreds of colossal statues depicting himself in divine form. This era also saw an extensive network of diplomacy, recorded in the famous Amarna letters, documenting exchanges of gifts, interdynastic marriages, and trade with Babylon, Mitanni, and the Hittites. Amid this wealth and stability, however, came an unprecedented religious upheaval. Under Amenhotep IV, later Akhenaten, Egypt abandoned its traditional polytheistic system in favor of exclusive worship of Aten, the sun disk. The capital was moved from Thebes to Amarna, old gods' statues were destroyed, and the power of the Amun priesthood was dismantled. This was the Amarna Revolution, a brief but shocking experiment in religious reform. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt entered a short period of instability. His successors, including Tutankhamun, the boy king whose intact tomb was famously discovered in 1922, quickly restored the old religion and returned the capital to Thebes. Though Tutankhamun's reign was short, he became a symbol of religious restoration and proof that the legacy of Egypt's ancient gods was eternal. The final Great Age came under Ramses II, Ramses the Great, who ruled for over 60 years and left an indelible mark through monumental projects such as Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, and numerous statues across Egypt. Ramses II is also famed for the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites, 1274 BCE, one of the most well-documented battles in ancient history. Though it ended in a stalemate, it led to the first known peace treaty in human history. Yet the brilliance of the new kingdom began to fade after Ramses III. The arrival of the Sea Peoples, mysterious seaborne invaders, combined with famine, internal strife, and economic decline, eroded Egypt's power. By around 1070 BCE, the pharaoh's authority fragmented and the nation entered the Third Intermediate Period. Even as the empire faded, the legacy of the new kingdom shone brightly. The massive temples, the exquisitely carved tombs in the Valley of the Kings, and texts like the Harris Papyrus and Battle of Kadesh inscriptions continued to tell the story of a time when Egypt was the center of the ancient world. Picture it. Night falls over Thebes, moonlight glistening on the Nile's surface, reflecting the colossal columns like immortal sentinels. In the cool desert wind, you might hear the phantom creak of chariot wheels crossing a causeway, the songs of rowers returning from distant campaigns, and the whispered prayers rising from the temple of Amun-Ra. Though thousands of years have passed, the memory of the new kingdom lives on, in every grain of desert sand and every ripple on the eternal Nile. From the towering pyramids of the Old Kingdom to the profound literature and philosophy of the Middle Kingdom, and finally to the dazzling golden age of the New Kingdom, ancient Egypt has left an eternal legacy. It was a civilization of pharaohs who were warriors, builders, and religious icons. Though it eventually declined and disappeared from the political map, Egypt's imprint remains deeply etched in human memory. Join us again as we continue our journey to uncover the world's other great ancient civilizations.